Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sutavacha. Evam Krishna Sakha Krishna. Vratraya Ragya Vikalpita. Nanashankas Padam Rupam. Krishna Vishlesha Karishita.
Sutta Goswami said, Arjuna, the celebrated friend of Lord Krishna, was grief-stricken because of his strong feeling of separation from Krishna. Over and above all Maharaja Yudhishthira speculative inquiries.
Shokena Shushyatavadana Ritsarajo Hata Prabha Vibhumtam Evanasmaram Evanusmaran Nashaknat Pratibhashitum.
Due to grief, Arjuna's mouth and lotus-like heart had dried up. Therefore, his body lost all luster. Now remembering the Supreme Lord, he could hardly utter a word in reply.
Krishrena Samstabhya Shasha Paninam Richa Netrayo Parokshana Samunadha Pranayotha Kantya Kataraha.
With great difficulty, he checked the tears of grief that smeared his eyes. He was very distressed because Lord Krishna was out of his sight, and he increasingly felt affection for him.
Sakyam Maitrim Suhritam Cha Saratyadishu Samsmaran Nripam Agrajam Ityaha Bashpagadgadaya Gira.
Remembering Lord Krishna and his well-wishers, benefactions, intimate familial relations, and his chariot driving, Arjuna, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak.
Arjuna Vacham Vanchitoham Maharaja Harina Bandhurupena Yaname Apahritam Techo Deva Vismapanam Mahat.
Arjuna said, O king, the supreme personality of Godhead, Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus, my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me.
Yasyakshana Viyogena Lokohye Priyadarshana Ukthena Rahito Yesha Mritaka Prochete Yatha.
I have just lost, whose separation for a moment would render all the universes unfavorable and void like bodies without life.
Yam Samshaya Drupada Gehamupagatana Ragyam Swayam Vare Mukhe Smaradurmadanam Tejohritam Kalo Maya Bhita Dash Shamatya Sajikritena Dhanusudhigata Cha Krishna.
Only by his merciful strength was I able to vanquish all the lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupad for the selection of the bridegroom. With my bow and arrow I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Drupadi.
Yat Sanidhavaham Yu Kandavam Agnayadam Indram Cha Samaraganam Tarasa Vijitya Abdhasa Mahamaya Krita Bhuta Shilpamaya Digbhyo Harana Niripatayo Palim Advarete.
Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven, Indradeva, along with his demigod associates, and thus enable the fire god to devastate the Kandava forest. And only by his grace was the demon named Maya saved from the blazing Kandava forest, and thus we could build our assembly house of wonderful architectural workmanship, where all the princes assembled during the performance of the Rajasuya Yagna and paid due tributes.
Yetejasa Nripa Shironigrim Ahan Markhartham Aryonuja Stava Gajayuta Sattva Virya Yanahrita pramatahanatha markaya bhupa. Yan moshatastat anayan balem advarete.
Your respectable young brother who possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants, killed by his grace Joashand, whose feet were worshipped by many kings. These kings had been brought for sacrifice in Joashand's Mahabharata Yagna, but they were thus released later. They pray tribute to your majesty.
Patnyastevadhi makha klepta mahabhishaka shlaghishtacharukhabaram kitavaihi sabhayam sprishtam vikira padayo patitarasha mukhya yastastriyo krita hatesha vimukta keshaha.
It was he who loosened the hair of all the wives of the miscreants who dared open the cluster of your queen's hair, which had been nicely dressed and sanctified for the great Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. At that time, she fell down at the feet of Lord Krishna with tears in her eyes.
Yanodžuko pavana etya duranta krishrat Durvasa sori rachitat ayutagra bhogyaha Shakana shishtam upayuchya yatastrilokim Triptamamam sa salile Vinimagna sanghaha.
During our exile, Dhruvasamani, who eats with his 10,000 disciples, intrig- 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 intrigued with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. At that time, he, Lord Krishna, simply by accepting remnants of food, saved us by his accepting food. Thus, the assembly of munis, while bathing in the river, felt sumptuously fed, and all the three worlds were also satisfied.
Yateja satha bhagavan yudhi shula panir Vismat pita sagirijostram adanijame Anye apechaham amunaiva kalevarina Prapto Mahendra Bhavane Mahat Asanardham.
It was by his influence only that in a fight I was able to astonish the personality of God, Lord Shiva, and his wife, the daughter of Mount Himalaya. Thus he, Lord Shiva, became pleased with me and awarded me his own weapon. Other demigods also delivered their respective weapons to me. And in addition, I was able to reach the heavenly planets in this present body and was allowed a half elevated seat.
Tatreva me viharato bhujadanda yugmam Gandeva Lakshanam Arati Vadhaya Devaha Sandra Shrita Yat Anubhavitam Ajamidha Tenaham Adya Mushita Purushina Bhumna.
When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planet, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradeva, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with Gandiva bow to kill the demon named Nivatavkacha, O king, descendant of Ajimida. At the present moment, I am bereft of the supreme personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful.
Yadbandhava Kuru Balabdhim Anantaparam Ekorathena Tatareham Atirya Satvam Pratyahritam Bahudahanam Shamaya Parasham Tejaspada Mayam Shahritam Shirobhyaham.
The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existence, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I, seated on a chariot, was able to cross over it, and only by his grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with the jewels that were sources of all brilliance.
Yo Bhishma Karna Guru Shalya Samusho Dabara Rajanya Varya Radha Mandala Manditasa Agrecharo Mama Vibhoratha Yathopanam Ayurmama Manamsi Shadrisha Saha Oja Archat.
It was he who only withdrew the duration of life from everyone, and who in the battlefield withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the military phalanx made by the Kauravas headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Salya, etc. The arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but Lord Shri Krishna, while going forward, did all this.
Yadoshuma pranihitam guru Bhishma Karna Napritri Trigarta Shalya Sindhava Bahle Ka Gehi Astranya Mogha Mahimani Nirupitani Nopapri Shurniri Haridasam Eva Surani.
Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Shava, Shurma, Salya, Jayadrat, Balika all directed their invincible weapons against me, but by his Lord Krishna's grace, they could not even touch a hair on my head. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, a supreme devotee of Lord Nrsimhadev, was unaffected by the weapons the demons used against him.
Sautyevrita Kumaitinad Madaishwarame Yatpada Padmam Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavayaha Mam Shrantavaham Ara Yorathino Bhuvishtam Napraharana Anubhava Nirastachitaha.
It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses, and it was true to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offended services by the best men to attain salvation.
Thank you so much for allowing us to serve you, and please forgive me for all mistakes made. Hare Krishna.
Thank you as well, Mataji.
Thank you for the recitations. That was very nice. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for the wonderful recitations. Prabhuji, are you here?
Yes, I'm very much here.
I can't see you, Prabhuji.
You can't see me?
I can't even hear you properly.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Okay, okay. Now I'll make you host now, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Is voice okay today or
It's a bit far. It's very far, Prabhuji.
Oh. Do I have to log in using my phone again?
Yeah, we can just about literally hear you. It's not very clear. Oh.
Okay. Is this? Oh, there is something wrong. Can everyone hear me okay now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's start now. So, I guess everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Thank you. So we will start. This is the beginning of the 15th chapter of the first canto. So we will be going through the verses first and second today. So let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama-shloke Bhakti Yam Pravrajeta Manupet Tamapeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahaka Tara Ajutava Putreti Tanmayatayo Taravo Vinedustam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi. So let's chant the verse. The first verse of 15th chapter of first canto. Suta Uvacha Evam Krishna Sakha Krishno Bhratra Radnya Vikalpitaha Nana Shankaspadam Rupam Krishna Vishlesha Karshitaha. Translation. Suta Goswami said, Arjun, the celebrated friend of Lord Krishna, was grief-stricken because of his strong feeling of separation from Krishna. Over and above all Maharaj Yudhishthir's speculative inquiries, purported by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Vijay. Being too much aggrieved, Arjuna practically became choked up, and therefore it was not possible for him to reply properly to the various speculative inquiries of Maharaj Yudhishthir. Let's go to the second. Shoken shushadvandvan rutsarojo hata prabha vibhumte vanu smaran vibhumte van smaran na shaknot pratibhashitum. Due to grief, Arjuna's mouth and lotus-like heart had dried up. Therefore, his body lost all luster. Now, remembering the Supreme Lord, he could hardly utter a word in reply. Let's go back to the previous verse. It's here. So we will start our Mangala Charana and then we will discuss these two verses. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadame Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sa Advaitam Sa Avadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padans Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Namami Haripriye Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Paramanandam. Namo Om Vishnupada Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Janulambita Bhajo Kanakavadhato Sankirtane Chitaro Kamalaitaksho Vishwambharo Dvijabharo Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat प्रियकरो करुणावतारो यन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसूक्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वरं अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणाश्रवणात् त्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्. So thank you very much everyone for joining today's discussion. This verse or this chapter starts with the basic principle of union in separation, vipralamba bhav, and that's what the Arjuna's moroseness, his feeling of separation, the sadness, that's what it is. But at the same time, we can see that all Pandavas, Arjun, everyone can feel that closeness with the Lord at the same time. So when he is not there, that time they felt the intensity of him being not there the most. And that is the union in separation part. Vipralamba bhav. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us to understand that Vipralamba bhav, the union in separation. So we'll go through that today. It's a very fascinating discussion in terms of how to relish that apparent sadness or apparent separation and being so close to that. Once His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, I asked him a question and said, to understand this material world as illusion and the Vipralamba bhav I'm finding it difficult. And he said, it's not difficult. If we try to imagine a multidimensional movie, in the current movies, what we see is basically 2 dimensions. The picture which is moving in front of our screen, and 3 dimension is basically again another illusion where something we feel that it is coming closer, but it's basically a 2-dimensional in reality. So he said, consider the 3rd dimension, that the actual hero of that movie, he comes closer to you and he touches you. How will you feel? And then you can smell and what is there in the movie, the food or the fragrances or whatever. And that's nothing but this illusion. This is material world. It is real, but it is temporary. And so we can understand here, if Krishna has said and Arjuna has confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Majam. Shashvatam Divyam means he is saying you are eternal, you are there. So that separation is actually, Arjun has and all the Pandavas, all the pure devotees, they have a clear understanding. And we will go through some of the verses in the Bhagavad Gita to confirm that the eternity principle is already explained by the Lord, and Arjun is fully aware of, and still he is feeling that sadness. And that sadness is nothing but that Vipralamba bhav, means Lord, the separation from the Lord, he cannot bear it. He has to be there all the time with the Lord, with Krishna. And that is, and Arjuna's, if we study how Arjun is, what is his personality, his features are almost same as Krishna. He looks like Krishna. His voice and everything is very similar to Krishna. Because in 2nd canto later on, in one of the verses, it is said that Arjun is none other than expansion of the Lord himself. So he looks very much like the Lord. And that is why Krishna, so here we can see that another name of Arjun is Krishna. And or Krishna Sakha and Krishno. Yeah. So why it is said Krishna is, that is another name of him, because he is very much like the Lord. He has the same features as the Lord, almost the same. Bhratra Rajna Vikalpitha. Bhratra by his elder brother. Bhratru means, usually it is Bhratra, yeah, is usually referred for the elder brother. Literal meaning of Bhatru is brother. And Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking him loads of questions, and that's what this verse is explaining. And what is the Arjun is not able to speak. So being separated from the Lord, and his elder brother was suggesting various questions, as we have seen in the previous chapter. What is the reason behind it? He's unhappy on account of being separated from the Lord. Is something Yudhishthir Maharaj doesn't want to easily achieve, and he comes to that point at the end. Though Arjun is eternal associate of the Lord and he's an expansion of the Lord, but he's in the role of living entity, and we all are living entities. And Arjun is unhappy, and this is the lesson for us, that we are unhappy because we are separated from the Lord. And the modern philosophers, the scientists, or many other people may suggest that it is not because of God consciousness, but it is because of our unfulfilled desires, and we haven't discovered how to be happy, which is the biggest illusion. And the verse related to that, we will discuss it in a few minutes. The philosophers and the scientists and everyone, they can suggest of various means of being happy, but we can never be happy, and that is confirmed by all our acharyas. The core reason is we are unhappy on account of being separated from the Lord, from Krishna, and they either do not know that or they don't want to know that. Because if somebody accepts it, that we are separated from the Lord and that is why we are unhappy, that means the solution is there in front of them. When you acknowledge the problem, automatically we start looking for the right answers. And if we just ignore that problem, then naturally what happens is we look for some other reason to resolve the actual issue, actual problem. And that's what the current situation is. And this verse is telling us the crux, the reason behind it. As I think Prabhupada's, the basis of preaching here is he's telling that the living entity wants to do something out of our own whimsical ideas and try to be happy or try to find the solution. But the ultimate solution, as Prabhupada and our acharyas and the Lord himself eventually says, that Sarvodharman Parityajya Mamekam Charanam Praja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. Why does Lord say Papa in that? Papa means sin. Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo, that I will wash out all your sins. Why does he say that? Because any activity, any karma, which is done not for the service of the Lord, not in Krishna consciousness, is sin. Because pious and impious activity itself is an illusion. That's what our scriptures say, that pious activities again for the satisfaction of our senses, and that satisfaction of senses is also a sinful activity. So what is the solution? Connecting our senses with the Lord, with Lord's senses, will give the complete satisfaction to the senses. And that's what even the 13th chapter, Kshetra, Kshetrajna Vibhagyo. Kshetra means field. Kshetrajna means knower of the field, and the separation of that. Vibhag Yoga, and how to connect to that understanding of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. And that's what the 13th chapter is. We will see some of the verses related to that from the 13th chapter after some time. So as Prabhupada says that Lord is always, he's so kind that he's always waiting for us to go back to him. And what is that verse, the 10th chapter? Tadami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upayante. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. The person, satata means continuous, yuktanam means who is connected to me, bhajatam, who is worshipping me, who is remembering me, who is surrendered to me, bhajatam priti purvakam, with complete love. Tadami buddhi yogam tam, and he gives that intelligence, that how the living entity can go back to him. So there is an interesting verse. So let's go to and in the 7th canto we will see a verse which is give me 1 second. 531. And here Prahlad Maharaj is replying, or it's a discussion between him and Narad Muni. Nate viduhu swartha gatim vishnum durashaye bahirarthamanya andha yathandhi rupaniyamana tepita shatantrya murudam nibatha. So what does the translation say here? Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. What are the threefold miseries here? Prahlad Maharaj is referring to. Anyone can spell those threefold miseries?
Adibhautik, Adhyatmik.
Adhyatmik, Adidevik.
Okay, thank you very much, Mataji. So Prabhupada gives a very beautiful, detailed purport, and this is very much related to today's verse as well. Bahirarthamanya. So we don't have a lot of time, but you can read this purport later on. Blind man guiding another blind man, and he talks about the great Acharya Shukracharya, how he what is the what you call heritage, and if we don't have the right knowledge and the right understanding in the material world, how bewildered we will be. That's what this purport and later purports Prabhupada talks about. So we will go back to today's verse again. The one more verse from the from Bhagavad Gita, which is very relevant to this particular one, is from the 15th chapter, and we'll go to the 15th chapter and the 15th verse here, which is quite famous. Sarvasya chaham hridisanyavishto matah smriti jnanam apohanam cha vedeshcha sarver ahameva vedyo vedanta krit veda videva chaham. Very famous words, very, very important. And that's where Lord is saying, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the know of all the Vedas. As we have discussed one prayer by Sutta Goswami earlier, in the 12th chapter, in the 12th canto, 13th chapter, where Sutta Goswami says that Vedet Sangha Padakramo Upanishader Gayantiyam Samanta. So Ved personified Ved means the knowledge who has a complete Vedic understanding. What do they sing? Vedet Sangha Pada Kramo Upanishade. All the Upanishads, when they talk about the Lord, about the Vedic knowledge to their disciples, to their shishya, Kramo Upanishader Gayantiyam Samta. And beautifully what they sing is about the Lord. It's the perfection of the singing, because Sama Ved, out of 4 Vedas, is nothing but the art of singing for the Lord. So if you hear the most beautiful music, where is the origin of that music from? It is in Samaved. So, and the beauty of the Vedic literature is, according to consciousness, the Vedas start reciprocating with you. As one's disciple of Prabhupada asked him that, how do we, because what you see, when you see the deities, your vision is different. When some other senior devotees see the deities, their vision is different. And when I see the deities, our vision is different. And that time Prabhupada gave a very beautiful answer. He said that, yes, according to consciousness and according to your mood, Lord or the deity will reciprocate with you. So example of that is a Shaligram Shila. Shaligram Shila is the direct manifestation of the Lord. So as we start worshipping the Shaligram Shila with that love and reciprocation, the person will start communication with Shaligram Shila. That's a very, very intimate relationship with the Lord. But that's according to the consciousness, how the person starts worshipping. The Shaligram Shila directly starts reciprocating with the person. And we have so many examples of that. Right from 6 Goswamis and even earlier and later, our Acharyagan. So in our movement, our mood is that to make sure that Krishna and the living entities, that is all of us, are very intimately connected, like father and the son. So the example here, Prabhupada gives a lot of times is, there are 2 children. One child is just denying that the child has parents, or the child thinks that I have lost my parents, and that child is so confident or arrogant, we should say, that I will do everything with my own capacity and I will be happy. So that child has limitations. And the second child, Prabhupada says that child knows that my father is the richest man anyone can even think of. And or my father and mother, they're the richest people. And only thing is, I am separated from them because of my own will, my misuse of my freedom, my free will. And my objective is to go back to them. And obviously our loving father and mother want us to come back to them as well. That's the Lord for us. As Prabhupada says that, but because we have forgotten our intimate relationship with Krishna and trying to become happy in this material world, therefore we have to undergo so much tribulations. And this is the position. Prema Vivarta is a poetry written by Jagadananda Pandit, and that's where he says that Krishna bhuliya jiva bhoga vancha kare. We are suffering because of we have forgotten our parents, our Lord, and that's what the reasoning is, and that is the learning lesson from these two verses for us, that when Lord is absent from our life, we will be miserable, and that's what Arjuna is teaching us here. In every religious scripture, this is the basic crux. How to live a life and resolve all the queries of our basic queries of our existence, should be the basis, should be the Moola Prakriti, the basic nature of every living entity. And that's what we will see, the underlying principle of every religious scripture. Procedures, or the as His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj says, that the process may be different, the rituals may be different, but underlying principle has to be the same. And when anyone understands that time we will celebrate the differences in the religious scriptures. That yes, very respectfully, the person will understand why there are differences, because that variegatedness is also coming from the Supreme Lord Himself. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has preached, Jivera Swarup Hoye Nitya Krishna Das in the Madhya Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We, the living entities, we are eternally servants of Krishna, and this is our position. That's what Prabhupada will hear. He's saying that quite repeatedly in purports as well as in his lectures. If we deny this position, like now, why shall I become servant of Krishna? I'm independent, and that's where the suffering starts. As we saw in the Krishna bhuliya jiva bhoga vancha kare. As soon as you desire to enjoy independently, immediately he is captured by Maya. What is that verse in Prema Vivarta? Krishna bhuliya jiva bhoga vancha kare, pashate maya tare, japatiya dhre. I think Palika Mataji can.
Japatiya dhare.
Yeah. I don't know Bengali, so yes, Mataji, you can shed some light on that.
I'm not Bengali, Prabhu.
Yeah. Japatiya dhare. Palika Mataji, usually I ask her whenever I get stuck with all the.
Terrible. Yes. Bhagavancha kare, Japutiya dhare, means Maya will really capture you. That means that is Japutiya dhare. That means Maya will really capture you if you because you are so much engrossed in the bhogo and bancha, in the material way of life. So Maya really catches you. Embrace. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. I have been getting your
Prabhu,
guidance.
Japatiya means also in Gujarati, it's a similar word, so that's why we remember.
Oh, okay.
Japatiya means, just get the smacks.
Okay.
No, I think now in Bengali it's just the catches you with two hands. That's called
Oh,
Okay.
Capture.
Oh. We
With two
thought,
hands,
you get a smacks from the Maya Devi. That's what I was
in
thinking
Bengali,
about.
in Bengali, Japutiya means with two hands catches you.
Ah,
Japutiya means.
Oh, okay. Mataji, I got the point now.
Thank you.
Japata is the softer version is the Japatiya. Okay, I got it. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
enlightening me. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
So that's the Jagadananda Pandit, one of the acharyas, as a, what is that book? Gaur Ganodesh Deepika. That's where it is described that Jagadananda Pandit is none other than Satyabhama herself. So she's saying this. So obviously that's the perfection of how the mood should be. And then Prabhupada gives another example in this particular context that it's very easy to understand in a sense that for in the current situation, if person does not follow government laws and thinks that I am independent, that means you are immediately in the clutches of police force. Somewhere there will be siren very soon, right? Because the person is trying to be independent of the actual, they're not following the law. And in the same manner, if our sadness is because we are not following the principles, the need of our soul, how we should be. What is the purpose of our surrender? And that is Jivera Swarupa, we are eternal servants of the Lord. And if we don't understand that, there will be misery. That means the basic law we have forgotten. And that's the very amazing example Prabhupada gives here. So we will go to some of the verses from Bhagavad Gita. And let's talk about those verses. The first verse, in the fourth chapter is just, it's a continuous chain of verses, and then we will go to the 7, 12, 13 and 15 chapter. And 18th chapter, I think we have seen some of the verses, 1 or 2 verses already. So ajopi sanyavayatma bhutanamishwaropi san prakrutim swamadhisthaya sambhavamyatma mayaya. What is Lord saying here? So departure from the material world is just for us to understand that we can't be happy without him. For example, if somebody leaves our home for a time being, or sometimes some of our relatives for some other reason, if it is unfortunate that we lose some of the family members, what is that sorry? What is that misery? That's what Lord is, that's what we need to understand from today's verse. But here Lord is explaining that although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So he came, he appeared here. Avatarana, Ava means down, Tarana means float. So he came here, he floated here in the material world for a reason. And that reason comes in the next verse. So here, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Famous verses. Now it starts here. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in the religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Yeah. Tada atmanam srijamyaham. And then he comes here. Next verse is again very famous. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushpratam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge. To deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So his departure is also temporary because he came for a reason. That is not his departure is just him aprakata leela, him being out of our sight. That's what the understanding is. These purports are amazing. Prabhupada has given a very, very detailed instructions for us to understand. He talks about various Upanishads in these purports. Primarily, Prabhupada talks about Shvetashvatara Upanishad in most of the verses, and that's where the explanation of avatar is in Shvetashvatara Upanishad. As I think we have talked earlier, there are two types of Upanishad. One is Shukla Upanishad and second is Krishna Upanishad. Shukla Upanishad is Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Kathopanishad and Mandukya Upanishad and all that. And Krishna Upanishad is Taittiriya Upanishad, Mundak Upanishad, and those are all Krishna Upanishad. I think we talked about the story behind it, how that came into existence. So we won't have enough time to go through all the verses, so we will leave it for now. So the next verse is obviously his appearance and his activities. Janma karma chame vidivyam evam yo vyaktatvatha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sotyam. So especially in today's two verses, these are the verses we can meditate on, and those are very much in the context. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take this birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. And where is this explanation of his eternal abode? In the 15th chapter here. So we'll go to that a little later. And then comes after Janma Karma Chame Divyam, he gives the reasoning behind, it's like terms and conditions, that what we need to overcome to get his refuge, to understand the need for the absolute surrender, being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. In the same chapter, in the 4th chapter, there is a famous verse, Brahmarpana Brahmavir Brahmagno Brahmanam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhyana. That means everything, our activities, our existence, and our sacrifices should be for the spiritual purpose only. That's what the Lord says. I think it is 4.40, the verses. So, yeah, those are the verses we can focus on. What knowledge, that is the verse number 38 in the 4th chapter, Nahi jnanena sudrusham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vidyate. The supreme knowledge of all the mysticism of everything in this world is bhakti, and that's what the 4th chapter is, transcendental knowledge. Lord is explaining him, because who he is, what is his, Lord is talking about the principle of his appearance and the reason behind us to surrender to him, and that's the knowledge we need to attain, and that's what he talks in the verse number 38 and later in 40. So let's go to the 7th chapter, and we will go through some of the verses. 7th chapter has it's one of the chapters we should meditate on very, very regularly. because Lord reveals himself in this chapter. This is as the famous analogy we talk about of the sandwich. So this is the actually filling of the sandwich, which is Bhakti Yoga. And if we see the first verse, very famous verse, Sri Bhagwan Uvacha, Maya Saktamanah Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Samagrama Yatha Jnasyasi Tachrunu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now here, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga? Yoga means connection. The literal meaning of yoga means addition or connection. In full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So the disappearance of something from our side, when we know something or some personality, and if that person is no longer available to have that interaction with, that's the sadness. How to know him, and that's what the 7th chapter Lord talks. So if we go to the 3rd verse in the 7th chapter, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam vetti tattvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. What is the similar verse to that? Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan ma prapadyate vasudevaha sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. And this is the confirmation that how one may endeavor for perfection, and that perfection comes to that Vasudevaha Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. So if we go to the 6th verse here in the 7th chapter, Etadhyonini bhutani sarvani tyubadharaya aham kritsnasya jagataha prabhavaha pralayastata. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. That is the supremacy. Where Lord talks about his supremacy after 7th chapter in the 10th chapter, which is called what? Vibhuti Yoga. He is telling us that I am the origin, I am the source of everything. What is that famous verse where he talks that everything emanates from me? Anyone can remind me that verse?
Is it aham sarvasya prabhava matta sarva prabhava iti matta bhutama buddha bhava samannita?
Yes, thank you. So that's where in the 10th chapter, Lord is saying, yes, everything emanates from me. And that's here he starts. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution of this. Obviously, what is spiritual has no dissolution. So only the material world is subject to dissolution and origin, both. And that's what this verse is. Let's go to the next verse of this, which is the 7th one. Mattah parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. So he is the thread. That's the famous verse. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on the thread. And so how we can meditate on different verses from Bhagavad Gita, which is spoken by the Lord, which is the famous verse in the 1st chapter of the 1st canto. Lord Sutta Goswami says, Shrunvatam Sukatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Vidyantasthoya Abhadrani Vidunoti Surutsvam. Oh, Sarodni Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. So that is the verse. So that's the reason we should be focusing on the verses, which is said by the Lord. Here, Lord is confirming the basic principle of who He is. There is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on the thread. So, our eternal dependency is on the Lord. As once Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj said that there is a news for all of us when we start studying scriptures, and that news is we are not independent. We are eternally dependent on the Lord, and that's these verses here. Some other verses we will go to. The 15th is also very, very important verse here. Namam dush. We were talking about that few minutes back, sometime back. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradamaha maya aparutadhyana asuram bhavamastika. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of an atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. And why this verse is relevant in this particular context? Absence of the Lord and in our mind, or more separation from the Lord, when somebody thinks that I will be happy with my own endeavors, those are all the foolish people. That's what the confirmation from the Lord Himself here. And then in 19th verse, if we see that this was the verse we were talking about just earlier, that Bahunam Janmanam Jnanavan Mahaprapate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. I thought of going through some of the verses, particularly because of the Arjun is telling us how we should be unhappy when and the reason for unhappiness. So there is a meditation from some of the verses I thought of going through, and that's the reason we are discussing these verses today. So we will go to another verse from the 7th chapter. Yo yo yamyam tanum bhaktaha shraddhayar chitumichhati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. So why we are referring to this particular verse is people try to be happy by, if not materially, by following the principle of lobha, give and take. They try to be happy, and those demigods, as once His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj once said, that demigod is just like a shopkeeper. If someone says that take this money, I am giving you this money, for example, like 5 credits, and give me some chocolates, or if the kid is not really on stray, then they will say, give me some cigarettes, and demigod or the shopkeeper will do that. Demigod will fulfill the desire even if it is not suitable for us, because they are empowered by the Lord to do that. And that's what Lord is confirming here. Our what should be the mood, and that's what Lord tells later, that the foolish people worship demigods. And a person who is in a right state of mind, he comes to me. This verse we have discussed few times earlier. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samamah mudhoyam naviyanati lokomam ajamavyam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my eternal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So some of these verses, 7th chapter, yes, there are 1 or 2 more verses we can go to, but in 12th chapter, especially 2 to 8, Very important verse. Again, Sri Bhagwan Vacha, Maya Veshamano Yemam Nityayukta Upasate, Shraddhaya Parayopetaste, Me Yukta Tamamataha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith, are considered by me to be the most perfect. So he's giving what is right and what is wrong. That is there in Bhagavad Gita, confirmed by the Lord himself and his pure devotees. Example is Kunti Devi's prayers. If we focus on, she says that Vipada Sentuta Shashvat Tatra Tatra Jagadguru Bhavato Darshanam Yasyat Punarabhava Darshanam. So what does that mean? That just before this verse, Kunti Devi says that we went through so many difficulties, the ordeals, that poisoned cake, the lakshagraha, the house made of the lac, the resins which would quickly catch the fire, and then they were in exile, and 1 year incognito in Draupadi's insult and everything. And then she says that let those miseries come again and again. But the later part, the second part of that verse is Bhavato darshanam yasyat apunar bhava darshanam. She says that when I will see you, when you are there with me, I don't have to see this material. I won't be unhappy. I will be, because you are there with me all the time. Bhavato darshanam yasyat apunar bhava darshanam. I don't have to see this material world again because of the miseries, when I will see you again and again. And that's why give those miseries if you are going to be there. That's the prayer of Kunti Devi. And then she says how to pray. She also gives that Shrunvanti Gayanti. That's the famous prayer. Then in the 12th chapter, if we go a bit further, here, I think we'll have to be a bit quicker because there are only 7 minutes left. So we'll just quickly go through the translation. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons, engaged in welfare of all, at last achieving. And what he's talking about, the yogis who meditate on the Paramatma feature. And again, Sutta Goswami says in that prayer that Yasyantam na vidusura asuragana devaya tasmina. Everyone is worshipping you only. Dhyana avasthita gatena manasa pashyanti yam yogino. So those yogi pashyanti at the background, they're worshipping you, though they have the impersonal conception of the absolute truth. So that's what Lord is confirming here again. So personal form of the Lord is the most benevolent, is the most merciful, is the most gracious form of the Lord. And that's what our objective and the interaction should. And that's what the takeaway, that's what we have to meditate on and learn from this particular chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So if we go a bit further, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Again, what this explains to us, that personal relationship with the Lord is always the emphasis given by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita. And that's what Bhagavatam is confirming in this first chapter of the 15th chapter of the first canto. That absence of the Lord should be telling us that my relationship with the Lord is eternal. And if I miss that if I miss that point, then I can't be happy in this material world. So that's what the 12th chapter is telling us, because in 12th chapter later on Lord says that Yetu karmani sarvani mai sanyasya matparha ananyanaiva yogena mam dhyanto upasate tesham aham samudharta vritti samsara sagra bhavamena chirat partha maya veshiketsam. And this is the ultimate formula actually. In the chapter named Bhakti Yoga, Lord is telling us that how to worship Him. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pratha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean, birth, and death. This is the formula. This is the verse we can meditate on regularly. So that's what from the 12th chapter. And again, if we go to the verse number 18 to 20, which is the last bit of this chapter. So let's check that. Right. Sorry, it's my fault. Keep. Okay. Anyway, let's discuss about the chapter number 13. Stop that here. And in chapter number 13, we start with the first, who is the knower? What should be our consciousness? And here, first verse is said by Arjun, the second verse is said by the Supreme Lord. And here he's saying that I wish to know about Prakriti, the nature, the Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and the knowledge of the object of knowledge, and of the knowledge and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and who knows the body is called the knower of the field. The whole 13th chapter is telling us the Kshetra Vibhag Yoga, that what is our relationship, who we are. It establishes the fundamental principle of Sambandha Jnana. And in the 13th chapter, Lord says that, yes, I am the observer. I am giving you the permission to do any activity. Upadrashtanumanta cha bhakta bhakta maheshwara. That's the verse he talks about. And that's the 13th chapter. And then the last chapter, we will quickly go to, I think we have just 1 minute left. Sorry for rushing through so many verses, but this is the famous verse, Nirvana Moha Chitasanga Dosha Adhyatma Nitya Vinivritta Kama Dvandvair Vivukta Sukha Dukkha Samnehi Samneir Gacchande Mudaha Padam Avyav Tat. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to the eternal kingdom. And then we will go to the next verse quickly. Natad bhasayate suryo, na sashanko na pavakaha, yadgatva na nivartante tadbhama parama. He describes his own abode here. The supreme abode of mind is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So yes, we don't want this return ticket to material world anyway. So that's what the Lord's confirmation is. And this is the famous verse, Mumaiva Asho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhutaha Sanatanaha Manashashthani Indriyani Prakritisthani Karshti. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. And how to purify that, we have seen it in the earlier chapter. And here is the reason that Lord is saying, you all are mine, and I want you to come back to me. And the person who does not understand, that person will be miserable, because they are missing the fundamental principle of associating with the Lord eternally. So we will stop here. Sorry for rushing through so many verses, but I thought in the beginning of this chapter, which is the basis of the Vipralamba Bhav, I thought of giving or not giving discussion of various verses from Bhagavad Gita, which are basically the instructions for all of us, for the living entities. So we'll stop here. Are there any questions or comments or any other additions? No questions, no comments?
Hare Krishna Prayagraj Prabhu, I always appreciate your wonderful elaborated class. Is so nice. You're so knowledgeable, and you can really, connect from here to there and fit it all together for make a big picture. For me, it's just too much to remember. I'm not so intelligent. So what I felt here, that Arjuna, the way he was, lamenting for Krishna. I mean, he's his eternal servant. He's all the time with him. But Krishna said, "You have forgotten, but I haven't."
Yeah.
And because he comes that way, so the whole Bhagavatam, the whole lecture is, I find, that's why Krishna comes. Then how a pure devotee feel the separation from Krishna, like the gopis. They're the eternal associate of Krishna, that how they feel. So that's why we have to understand how we can purify ourselves to the level by showing the path in the whole Bhagavad Gita as a basic knowledge of all spiritual knowledge. So if we really understand the Bhagavad Gita properly, then we'll definitely and purify ourselves to this knowledge. And
Yeah.
definitely one day we will be with Lord, like the Arjuna is. This is my knowledge from this class. I also understand, like many people. I mean, I used to do so many demigods because I didn't know that Krishna is supreme. Actually, in ninth canto, it explains, the demigods, they do all sorts of things. Then I said, my God, who worship? No, only you worship Krishna, nobody else except,
Yes.
except Krishna, nobody else except Krishna. Because otherwise you'll be entangled again.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is my taking from this your class. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And you are so knowledgeable. You can
No,
come.
that's your kindness of being a mother. But I'm just repeating just some of the verses, because this particular chapter, later on Arjun tells about the pastimes, and if we read this chapter in a day, if someone read this chapter once, twice, thrice, then the complete meditation is on the complete surrender, how surrendered a soul should be. That's what this whole chapter is actually. It's a because, for example, when somebody is not with us, and if we know that the person is not with us is going to be for very long time, then we start missing that association, and we focus on the greatness and the wonderful qualities and the love of that person. Especially, for example, a child leaves home, and the child knows that for education or for job, if the child is going to be separated from the parents, that state of moroseness, that sorrow, that miserable condition is quite sad, because the whole idea of loving exchange between the parents and the child is going to lose, and the parents are also not going to be happy. And that's the takeaway from this chapter. Arjun is telling how he was empowered, how everything was because of him. And as we meditate more and more on this chapter, it's obviously the meditation will bring tears to our eyes because of the description Arjun gives in this chapter. But there is a lot to learn and lot to understand, lot to meditate on. And that's the reason thought of going through some of the important verses from Bhagavad Gita, so that we will understand the instruction of the Lord in our condition of separated from the Lord.
Thank you so much. It's really nice.
Thank you
Wonderful. Thank you
for your encouraging words. If there are no other questions or comments, then we will stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo
Namo Namah.
anantakoti vaishnavim.
Krishna Vrinda ki jai. Thank you,
Thank
Prabhuji,
you.
for a wonderful class.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for
Hare
a
Krishna.
class. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare
Krishna.
So,
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
thank you, Mataji.
Good night.